Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. This is Aaron Zauber, Fully Alive Coaching TV. We're going to have a lot of fun this morning. So, I want to introduce myself to you and talk a little bit about what you can expect to see and that we're going to talk about on this show. We're going to talk about, I'm an energy and relationship coach. I've been coaching people for about 10 years, and it's evolved quite a lot, as you can imagine, over the last 10 years. But essentially, what I do is I help people in complicated relationships turn their pain into power. So I'm going to talk about what that means. I'm going to talk about how that's not just a nice sounding idea, but that's something that we can actually do. Um, I've been involved in many different communities throughout my life, and sometimes we hear these nice ideas, but we don't really know how to practically apply them. So I'm going to do my best with you to show you, demonstrate how to actually apply this nice idea, turn your pain into power. And we can do that through some singing. There'll be a little bit of singing in this show, as well as somatic awareness, which is body awareness. And we're going to get deep into these topics, really spread it out. Going to talk a little bit about meditation, how to find peace in the chaos. So who am I, and where have I come from? I was born and raised outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in a little town called Snellville. And when I was about 14 years old, my family moved to the country of Israel. I spent about 2.5 years over there in all, in my teenage years. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for 10 years and bounced to Austin, Texas. I've been in the Raleigh area now over 2 years. And during my teenage years, I couldn't get a girlfriend, and it was really hard for me. And I did not take it lightly. Most things in my life, I haven't taken them lightly. I've been very serious about all of them. And what I ended up doing in my late teens and early 20s is I went out to bars and clubs for around 1,000 nights or so, approaching women, approaching groups of people, learning how to create a connection, how to create attraction, or even be aware of what that was. Learning how to be myself. It was funny when I was getting started and I would tell people what I was up to. A lot of times they would give me this trite advice: just be yourself, Aaron. And I would get angry because I had no idea what that even meant. I remember a poignant moment when I was about 10 years old. I was crying in the back of my dad's van, of my family van, because I thought I had a bad personality. And I committed at that young age that I was going to develop a personality that was lovable. I was going to change my personality because it wasn't, in the way that I saw it, it wasn't good enough. And I was going to do whatever it took in order to be lovable and to have a personality that worked. So it's always sort of been this struggle, on the one hand, for me to be human and for me to create a connection with other humans. And we're going to talk about how, what I find is the most complicated relationship often tends to be the relationship we have with ourselves. The one human that we're stuck with no matter what for the rest of our lives is this human, right? The one we get. I get this one, you get that one. And then if we choose to, we can learn how to love at least this human. And then really that helps us to learn how to love all the humans. So, where are we here? I was good at one thing. When I was 19 years old, I went out and started to learn how to sell Cutco kitchen cutlery. You might have heard of. When I was 20, about 2021, I opened up a branch office in Asheville, North Carolina. While I was still in college, I had a sales team. So that's where I started coaching people how to set goals and achieve them. How to just keep a schedule and organize and just basic stuff, right? And I did that 2 summers in a row. Had a whole team of college kids selling knives in people's houses, how to do appointments and sales. And so I was good at that, and that was kind of my saving grace. I always did I always did the sales stuff for a really long time, always training and coaching. But the relationship stuff, that was really where the challenge was. And I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned. So I'm now in a committed partnership. I've known her for over 2 years. We've been together the whole time. I was with a woman for about 4 years that before her, that during that time we broke up and got back together around a dozen times. So there's been a whole lot of learning, a whole lot of learning how to actually be in relationship and what makes it work. And I've got to tell you, now more than ever, it's working. And now more than ever, I'm in the flow of life. Now more than ever, I feel more fully alive in my relationships, in my work, in my body. So I want to tell you a story about when I first started to come back into my body. I was on a chiropractic table about 5 years ago. This special modality of chiropractic called network spinal analysis. It's a modality that's not so forceful on the bones. It uses light touches to help the body become aware of the tension that it's carrying. Okay, we're all carrying tension in one way or another, right? So this type helps the body to breathe and let go of that tension. And if you get into some of the cutting edge research on trauma therapy in psychology and in healing, you're going to start to hear this word trauma. Trauma is a broad spectrum catch-all word that basically means any unprocessed experience in our bodies. So I had a trauma release that day on that chiropractic table. What happened was, as I was on the table, I started to remember a moment when I was about 11 or 12 years old. I had jumped out of a swing, showing off for my dad how high I could jump. And I was swinging. I got higher and higher. I remember right before I jumped, my dad said, "Whoa, that's a little high." And my 11-year-old self, I was just like, "No, I'm going for this." And I did. I jumped out higher and farther than I'd ever jumped before. And I was soaring through the air, and then boom, I landed on my left ankle. And I just remember this shooting pain. I was screaming and crying, and my dad picked me up and he carried me inside. And I remember over the next 6 months or so, we didn't actually see the doctor because we didn't think it was that big of a deal. I think deep inside I knew it was kind of a big deal, but I didn't want to bother anyone about it. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I didn't want my parents to have to pay any hospital bills. So we just let it heal. We just kind of let it heal, and it healed funky. You know, it's on the one hand, it's hard that this happened, right? And we all have challenges that happen to us. But I'm grateful today that this happened. Here's what happened on the chiropractic table. I ended up sort of reliving that experience. There I was on the chiropractic table. I tapped into that remembering, and I was breathing and I started sobbing. I started crying. And somewhere I heard myself crying, and it didn't even sound like me. So this was 5 years ago. It sounded like an 11-year-old boy screaming and crying for help. It sounded like an 11-year-old boy who was just wanting someone to hold him and someone to take care of him. And I was feeling all this pain of not asking to really be taken care of at the level I maybe should have asked for. And then something magical started to happen in my body. So this experience on the chiropractic table, it lasted around 5 or 10 minutes. Really wasn't that long. It was very intense. But at the end of this 5 or 10 minutes, I started to feel a little sensation in my ankle that I had not felt before, or at least I had not felt in a really long time. It was sort of like, brr, brr, brr. I felt this movement, this electricity, this sort of palpitation in my left ankle, and it felt like it was healing. The crazy thing is, I've continued to do body work. I've continued to go deep within myself to excavate old, unprocessed experiences. And my left leg and my left ankle and my whole body has continued to heal more and more. Now, it's not 100% fully in alignment. There's still parts of myself that are coming back online. There's still parts of myself that are holding on, that are unwilling to fully feel the pain of that moment, of those moments where the intensity of the experience was so much that somehow I tried to escape. I tried to numb myself. However, what has been happening has been an unprecedented healing in my life. And I'm going to explain about what this is. And this is a taste of what I mean when I say turning our pain into power. So, so what happens in our lives is we encounter something difficult. We encounter some pain, some challenging experience. And if we don't have the resources or the resourcefulness to fully be with that, if it's too intense, then we try to escape, we try to numb. And that in clinical terms, they usually refer to that as a trauma. Okay, that's an unprocessed experience. It can be all the way on a scale from fairly light. There's a book called The Trauma of Everyday Life, to, another side of the spectrum where it's incredibly intense. It can get really heavy. There's everything in between. So here's how we often think about these things, and how we often, these experiences can stay in our bodies. That's where they stay, is in our bodies for a long time. They can stay in there for years. In my case, it was around 14, 15 years for that one specific trauma. My journey back in, and here's why this is important. I want to share, before I explain more about this, I want you to know why this is important for you and how this is going to help you in your life if you choose to pay attention to this, and if you choose to use it and to continue using it. So here we are walking through this world, right? We're in a body. I'd like you to begin taking the perspective that maybe what you are is a spirit. And maybe, like Teilhard de Chardin said, we are We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And maybe that's what we really are. And I want to offer it to you that way because I'm not asking you to believe anything that I'm saying. I'm simply asking you to consider it and think about it. And if we are these spiritual beings who are having embodied experiences, walking through this world, then maybe there's a purpose for that. Maybe there's a reason. And maybe the more that we can embody, the more that we can be in our bodies. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. The more that we can do what we came here to actually do, the more that we can be here, the more that we can be present. And when we can be present, we can be here in our bodies. We can show up for the people that we love in our lives. We can show up for our family, for our friends, for our clients. Many of us are business owners and entrepreneurs. And if we're not, we're employees. And we want to be able to show up for our employers, right? We want to become more effective in everything that we do. You've probably heard the phrase, work smarter, not harder, right? So embodying ourselves is a way that we can leverage our work so that every action we take in the world is more powerful. Every action we take in our lives has more gravity, it has more weight, and therefore it has more impact. And we can start to remember what it means to live with more significance, to remember who we really are. And that's really what being fully alive to me is all about, is remembering who we really are. So how do we do that? How do we show up like we want to show up? How do we have all the energy that we want to have and perform like we want to perform in the world? Well, there's a couple different ways. One is outside in, one is inside out. I've been talking mostly this morning about the inside out way because I think that's the more fundamental. Okay, so here we are. So we're spirits, we have bodies. Our bodies have an intense experience of life. We're born into these families. We find ourselves as these children in in a family or an environment. We have caretakers or guardians at the very least. And we want to learn how to navigate through that in a powerful and effective way to get through our lives. So in order to be in our bodies, here's the application. It's very simple. So I want you to pay attention because if you don't, you might miss it. All we have to do is put our awareness into our bodies. That's it. Put our awareness into our bodies. So we're going to do that for a minute here. I'm going to show you what I mean. I want you to become aware of the sensations in and around your feet. Okay? Notice what it's like. Really do it. Notice maybe you can wiggle your toes. Feel that? Now notice your ankles. Interesting, right? Maybe you notice some sensations that you weren't so aware of before. I want you to put some awareness on your breath. Notice if your breath is shallow or if it's deep. Maybe as you begin putting awareness in your body and on your breath, maybe you even notice that you want to change it a little bit. Maybe you want to breathe deeper. Maybe you notice you're beginning to relax. So we're just going to scan the body here. Okay, this vehicle that you have to move through your life. We're going to do a quick scan and we're going to see what's here. So become aware now of your shins and calves. Notice if you feel any tingling or electricity. Maybe you feel some tightness. Maybe you feel openness or freedom. Invite any tension that you feel to relax and to let go and to drain downwards into the earth. Notice your knees. Notice your upper legs. And as you do this, I want you to imagine an inner breath. Okay, just imagine it. Imagine that your breath, that you have an inner awareness breath that is energizing and is almost healing the insides of your body here. Imagine you can become aware of the bones. So just do it with me now. Feel your pelvis, your intestines. I notice some tightness there of my own. Notice your stomach, your back, and breathe into it. And what I mean by breathe into it is as you breathe, which of course your breath is, it's just going into your lungs. But as you breathe, imagine that there is an inner breath that's able to expand and relax around the interior of your body. Noticing your mid chest, upper chest, your back, upper back. Really just taking a minute to be with your body. This beautiful vehicle that is really a gift. It's a gift that you have to move through this world at this time. Notice your shoulders and your neck, your arms and elbows. Maybe you can notice each finger in your hand for just a moment. And maybe you notice what a world of sensation has been there. Notice your head, your face, and allow your awareness to expand over your whole body. Really feeling grateful for this body, for all that it does for you, for the experience of this body. I got a question about identity. So, as I was preparing for this introductory time here, I was asking friends and family some questions that they could prepare for me. And I also want to invite you, if you have questions about this, please let me know about them. You can just send them to aaron@fullyalive.coach. And that's not .com, that's .coach, like life coach. So aaron@fullyalive.coach. Send me a question. I have a tendency sometimes to digress and to follow down rabbit holes. So sometimes I'll say a phrase and then I'll just forget that I even mentioned a whole, book worth of topics, and I'll go to something else. So just let me know what questions you have. So I got a great question from Paul about identity and how I think about my identity, how I make that, and how we can find our identity. So for me, my identity now is really about the experience in my body. What I've noticed is that, when I'm happy, when I take care of my body, the world around me also appears a little bit happy. It seems a little bit more taken care of. I read in a book by Deepak Chopra several years ago. I think the book was called something like Unlocking the Secrets of the Universe. He said that the world is a reflection of you. The universe is a reflection of you. And this ties back into embodiment, into awareness of the body, because as we heal our bodies, as we remember how to be with our bodies, then we notice how we can also heal and be with the bodies around us. So, this embodiment meditation that I just walked you through, I spend about 45 to 60 minutes every morning doing that. And it's one of my most powerful practices that I do. What happens over time is that it gently allows old, unprocessed experiences to come up and to be known, and then to let go of them. And what happens when I do that is I become more relaxed, I become more present, and then my work becomes more highly leveraged. It takes less effort to be in the world. This tension that we hold, like I said, we all have it. I still have parts, you still have parts that are tense. Maybe they've been that way for a long time. And there's a good reason, more than likely because it's intense. And a lot of times we never slow down enough to be with that. When we do, though, when we start to prioritize being with our bodies, we start to notice that life becomes easier. It becomes more filled with flow, and we start to feel more alive without trying so much. So, one of my favorite ways to do this, I'm going to make a note because I want to come back to that idea. But one of my favorite ways to do this is by singing. So I promised you there was going to be some singing. So we're going to do that now. Um, Earlier this year, it was in April, I was headed down to the beach with my partner. And I had just come off of a couple weeks of hardcore transformation, a ton of crying, a ton of meditating, a ton of really being with what is actually happening in the body. And you know what? I do have to make this digression because I've thought of it 5 times, so I have to tell you what it is. Love. What love really is the capacity to be with what's happening. Love is pure presence. We get it confused because love sometimes it feels similar to care or affection or even sexuality. And, we call it love making. So we can get it confused. But at its very essence, what I'm learning about love is that it's simply our capacity to be present, to be with what's happening without turning away. Without turning away and without clinging on, without grasping. I think one of the most beautiful expressions of love is to be with something that we love so much. The most beautiful thing that we've ever seen, that we've ever experienced. And also be able to let that thing go. I think that's what love really is. We're neither turning away, we're not denying that our heart is breaking open. We're not defending against it, but we're also not aggressive towards it. We're not clinging on, and we're not turning away. We're simply present. We're present with it. And you know what? That experience, it happens in the body. So I'm inviting everyone to consider this and to give it a try, to give this a try. I'll give you a free resource that's helped me out a ton. It's dharmaocean.org. They have some free guided meditations on there. Can get you started with some easy guided body meditations. They call it somatic meditation. And I tried meditating for years. And I would just make myself do it. I've always been sort of that type of person where I'm just like, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. I'm going to do it. And I really did. I did that for a long time, um, until I burned out my adrenal glands. I didn't mention any of these. I didn't mention that. When I was 26 years old, that was 4 years ago, I burned out my adrenal glands. A kid is not supposed to burn out their adrenal glands. But for me, I was holding so much tension in my body, so much stress that I just hit a wall. And it didn't matter how powerful my decision was at that point. It didn't matter how badly I had decided to do it and execute, make a plan and execute. You know what the right thing is to do, and you just freaking do it. None of that mattered anymore. No matter how positive I was, there was nothing that was going to just get me out of bed in a jiffy. So I spent a lot of time healing and repairing my adrenal glands. The adrenal glands produce energy in the body. If I didn't explain that, adrenal, you can hear adrenaline is one of the energy hormones they produce. They produce cortisol and some other energy, maybe norepinephrine, and give the body energy. So I was basically bedridden for a couple months until I learned how to slow down. I learned how to be with what was actually happening. I learned how to let go of stress and slow down in order to become more effective and get even more done. And I see this with a lot of high performers. Some of my clients are high performers, and what they do is it's very similar. We always attract people as coaches who tend to be a lot like us, tend to have similar struggles and challenges. And what we do as high performers, as team leaders, as coaches, or even just if we're having a family, if we're a mom or a dad, and we've got children that are counting on us. And I don't have kids, but if you have kids that are counting on you, even if you're not leading a team, you are a leader in some way because you lead this human, right? You lead the one that you get. And as leaders, we want to be able to be high performance. What happens in our culture, especially, and when I say our culture, I mean the United States generally, although this is really worldwide in a lot of ways over a lot of the world, is that we go, go, go. And we're addicted to always going up. We're addicted to being positive because being positive is great. It's great. Who wants to be internal and sad and be with the darkness when it could be daytime? We could have all these bright lights around us. So what that is, though, is just like I burned out my adrenals at 26 years old, is they're in that there's a bit of avoidance, like I talked about a minute ago, aversion to being with what's really actually happening. And what's really actually happening sometimes is that our bodies, again, that we're here to learn how to love, our bodies are crying for us to slow down. And we're doing those people who depend on us a disservice if we don't take care of our vessel. Isn't that right? All right, I want to take a couple breaths here and drink some water. Talking about all this slowing down, I'm like, what does my body need? So we can get addicted to the productivity, right? To what I call the masculine side of nature. There's masculine, there's feminine, right? There's yang and there's yin, respectively. And there's seasons, of course. We just had the autumnal equinox. So here we are, we're going, the light, at least in the northern hemisphere, is getting shorter. And the dark is getting longer. It's going to get colder outside. We're going into a more feminine polarity, into a more feminine manifestation of, of this material world. Isn't it beautiful? The leaves are all going to turn bright yellow and orange and red. and this beautiful, almost like a fire that's sort of going down, all the sap in the trees goes inward and down, right? So everything's going kind of more internal. And this is a very natural part of nature. And when we had, so we have these seasons, these fluctuations, sometimes daytime, sometimes nighttime, sometimes, um, sometimes summer, sometimes winter, right? And there's a gradual, spring and fall in between. Um, Sometimes sunshine, sometimes rain, right? Sometimes we have the storm. And life isn't so much about waiting for these storms to pass, but maybe it's much more about learning how to dance in the rain. And I want to give credit to Tony Robbins for that quote. That's one of my favorite ones. So, what I was doing and what many of us do is we spend so much time trying to go up, trying to produce, trying to be productive, trying to be happy, trying to be on, right? We want to be on. We want to have it together for, just to hold it together, hold things together. Who wants to fall apart when we can have it together? I want to invite you to consider that as we learn how to fall apart, we will be able to go further than ever before. I want to invite you to consider that in order to be fully alive, we must learn how to be with life as life truly is, neither clinging on nor turning away. Does that make sense? So I learned a technique. So back to my story at the beach. We're in the truck. We're headed down to Wilmington. We're excited. Woo, vacation time. Just gonna spend the night down there. And I started singing, as I often do in my life. I just break out into song because why not? And so as I started singing, I started to sing about the tension in my body. I was singing about the beautiful things and about the tension. And then I started to cry. And I realized, I was like, wait a second. I think I just discovered something. So I tried it again. I started singing about the tension in my body again. Let me just demonstrate right now so you can understand what I'm talking about. I don't know if I'm gonna cry. Um, I feel a little nervous. This is the first introduction here, so I'll just demonstrate this because I want you to have this as a tool in your arsenal so that you can also learn how to let go, so that you can be fully alive. I feel happy to be here today, sharing the wisdom from my heart. I still feel tension in my heart, and I know I'll be okay. I'll be okay. So there's just a little example, right off the top of my head. It's just something that you can do anytime, really. There's appropriate times. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of a container. Let me just make a note, container, to come back to that. So this tool of unlocking the tension, again, when we unlock the tension in our bodies relax. And then we begin to live more in the flow. We begin to live more in the zone. A lot of sports people, they call it the zone. And things around us start to flow more easily. Imagine that. As within, so without. As it is on the inside of ourselves, the interior reality, so it is on the outside reality. I want you to consider that. And as we unlock the tension, as we unblock it, we are literally turning our pain into power. It's, what the thing that's painful is our resistance to life. That's really where the pain is. They say that I've heard some different spiritual gurus talking about how pain is really the result of believing the illusion, of clinging on to the illusion. And the illusion, it has to do with fear, with not feeling safe, and also with trying to control. Okay, we're trying to freeze reality in a way. We're trying to freeze our life. In a nutshell, Buddhism is basically saying that life is suffering, right? The Buddha basically said life is suffering, life is pain. When we try to avoid our pain, what happens? It creates more pain. There is a chance, however, for us to be free from suffering. And that can happen when we are willing to turn towards our pain. Okay, in other words, not to turn away. So what can we do about this? We can practice. We can practice a little bit at a time. Have you ever heard the phrase open your heart? I remember hearing that phrase a few years ago, especially as I got into, I started to get more friends who are sort of, it could be called in the new age community. I don't really consider myself part of any particular community. I like to just take parts of every culture or community and every wisdom tradition, and I like to experiment with it and see what actually works in the long term. Does it work in the long term? So I would hear these ideas, again, like I said in the beginning, turn your pain into power, or open your heart. And no one could really explain it to me. I came from so much trauma on the one hand that my body awareness was so far out that I didn't understand how to be in the body. What it is to open one's heart. Do you want to know? All it is putting the awareness on the heart. Let's do it right now. Let's experiment with it. Because again, I don't want you to believe me. I want you to consider it, and maybe if it speaks to you, give it a try and see how it works. Okay, so let's do it right now. So maybe put your hand over your heart area. Doesn't have to be exact. And take a few breaths into your heart with me. And notice what you notice. Do you notice some sensations there? For me, I do feel some tightness there. My heart is significantly more open now than I can ever remember it being in this lifetime. And of course, there's tightness too. And again, part of love, part of practicing love is practicing being with that. Learning, understanding, knowing how to be with whatever is actually there. Can you be with this? Can you be with this? And it's so simple, right? It's so simple that we can almost miss it. It's like, really? But is it really that simple? Turning your pain into power? I'm not promising that it's all going to happen in one instant because it's not. It may, well, you know what? It's good to be open to that. I'm open to it happening all in an instant, just like that. That would be marvelous. And I'm open to that, and I invite that in if that is what, the divine's will for me or the divine's will for you. And until that happens, I'm willing and I'm ready to surrender to what's here for me as part of the journey, right? It's a crazy journey we're on. Crazy. We get these human bodies and these families, we just wake up and we're like, what is going on here? What's going on? So what I propose is that you can use your identity, something to ground you, something that will make you more effective in the world, as your body. Your body is your reference point. As they say in my meditation lineage, Dharma Ocean, the body is the refuge. The direct experience you are having in your body is your reference point for what is real and what is not real. And you may find, like I've been finding, the more you practice being with, loving your body, not in a narcissistic way, but just in that way that I mentioned, neither clinging on nor turning away. The more you practice that, the more you will find that your direct experience, it'll either fall away or it will remain, right? And you will learn how to trust that. Sometimes my clients or just even friends or people in the world will tell me things like, I don't trust people. And what I see in those cases, generally there's been some wounding there. There's some pain there, right? And we can have some compassion for that. And there's a lack of trust of that person's self, fundamentally. What I'm offering to you is that you can grow that trust. You can grow that self-trust. And that self-trust, it lives in your body. That's where it lives. And in the long term, whatever you can't trust is going to fall away. So just to tie that loose end with the singing, it's a technique that I use most days after my morning meditation. Actually, a little song came to me this morning in my meditation that I've been meaning to share with you. I thought maybe I would open with it. And I think maybe in future times that I will open with a short song if one comes to me. This is sort of a prayer. It's just 4 lines. It's a prayer to the divine. And I invite you to feel it along with me. Please help me be a vessel for you. Please help me be a vessel for truth. Please help me to speak from my heart. Please help us to remember who we are. What I've noticed over the last 5 years, as I've learned how to let go more and more, deeper and deeper, going from I remember when I was in college around 17, 18 years old, and I cried back then. And I remember that it was the first time I had cried in maybe a year. I just really didn't cry. I didn't think there was usefulness in it. I had these kind of harsh stories about like, what's that good for? What's the use? What that's not productive to cry. And of course it's not productive immediately. But now I cry almost every day. That slowly increased over time. And I got to tell you, I feel more alive. I feel more present, more free than ever before. And when I'm with my clients, I have so much space. When I'm with my partner, when I'm with my friends and family, there's a lot more space there because all that energy I was using to try to hold it together was not sustainable. Does that make sense? It's not sustainable in the long run. So this singing, you can use it. Just, I invite you to do it in a container. Okay, you don't have to go on Facebook or on a live TV show type thing and do it, but maybe just privately. Maybe tonight before you go to bed, or tomorrow morning. Maybe you have a short 10-minute meditation where you just put your awareness on your body, and then afterwards, just sing a few lines. Why not? Why not, right? What I learned about this going down, like I call it. Remember, there's that masculine go up, go up, go up. Sunshine, brightness, productivity, hold it together. What I learned is that the more that I'm able to really be with that feminine part of life, where I go down, where I love what's present, where I am present with what's happening, whether it's up or down, then the more um, again, the more leverage I have in my life, the more productivity, the more flow, the more wisdom, and the more trust. Back to that trust thing. The reason that I don't ask you to believe what I say is because I want you to trust your own experience above any guru, above any teacher. We all know of stories where a spiritual leader has led people astray and people have just kind of blindly followed them. I will never ask that of you. I will never ask that of anyone. God help me to stay on that surrendered path, because your direct experience is the ultimate reference point. And the more you cultivate that using these techniques that I've been talking about today, you can use singing. And this is whether you have a great voice or not. Just um, I'm no Andre Bocelli, right? I just sing, I just let it come out, and it is what it is. One thing I've noticed though, and this is a bit of a digression, but one thing I noticed is that the more that I sing, I've actually been clearing tension from my throat, and my throat is opening up. My expression is opening up, and there's more flow. I can talk more easily. I used to be super shy, but I'm letting all this stuff just kind of flow through me. And like I said, I cry almost every day. I'm a fast grower. I'm growing fast. I'm doing, have a whole team of healers around me. I see the network spinal analysis chiropractor, a quantum neurology chiropractor who does more traditional chiropractic. I've been seeing an acupuncturist every couple weeks. I do some yoga, some hot yoga. I do ecstatic dance. I meditate for 45 plus minutes every day. I talk to my life coach twice a week, and you better believe I am sobbing those entire 45 minutes, because when we're growing this fast, when we want to be effective at what we do, when we want to be high performers who are fully alive, you better believe, man, you better believe that you got to learn how to go down and you got to let go. Because if you want to have daytime, you got to learn how to have nighttime. It doesn't work any other way right now, at least for this time on this planet. That's just how it works. And I want to communicate to the high performers, especially out there, you people who want to have more energy, who want to get more done, who want to be on for your teams, for your families, for your communities. You got to learn how to let go so that you can be effective at what you do. And that letting go, it happens in your body. And here's the cinch. Here's the key. Put it in a container. Okay? Put it in a container. Here's what I mean by that. Let's take a negative emotion. Let's take anger, for example. Anger is sort of like fire. Okay, emotionally speaking. So I'm going to use a metaphor here. Now, is fire good or bad? Could go either way, right? Sometimes we act like anger is always bad all the time, but it's not so, right? Anger can protect us. Anger can set a boundary. We need anger if a loved one is in danger and we need to get somebody to back off, right? Now, in that same way, fire, let's say you've seen fire burn down a forest. Well, the first surface understanding of that could be, oh, fire is bad. Let me tell you about fire. I saw it burn down a forest. Yeah, I'm not ever touching that. Not so fast though, right? Because if we put fire in a fire pit, we put fire in a container, then it can cook our food. Then it can warm us at night. We can sit around a campfire, maybe fire pit in the backyard, roast some marshmallows. I actually just did that a couple nights ago. And and it's relaxing and beautiful and marvelous. So that's what I mean when I talk about a container with emotions. Okay? So I come here right now in this time, and it's appropriate for me to be on. And there may be times when I'm going to cry because I'm a crier. I already told you that. But when we put another example of a container is like a life coach. Okay? So like I said, I talk to my life coach twice a week and I cry. That's a time where I let go. Because I've learned that if I want to hold it together in other areas of my life, if I want to show up with presence for my partner, for my family, for my clients, if I want to hold that masculine energy, when I'm at a business meeting or giving a talk or my group coaching, I've got to find that container, okay, an appropriate time to let go and to fall apart. I'm a big supporter of falling apart. We just got to learn how to do it. And we don't learn how to do that in our culture because our culture is just we're hyper masculine. That's the truth of it. Look, the masculine and the feminine are both gorgeous. They're both beautiful and they're both perfect. But things get wacky when they're out of balance. Okay, when we're too much go, 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 and we're not enough slow down, rest, digest, rejuvenate, be with the slowness and the patience. When we don't have enough of that, we're out of balance. And like I said, out of balance, it's not sustainable. We have seasons, we have moments. There was a night last week where I only got 6 hours of sleep because I had stuff I wanted to do. So there's times and seasons when we're going to be more on. But our biggest learning point, our biggest opportunity here in our culture is to learn how to turn off, how to be with the vehicle for moving through the world, how to fall apart. We got to learn how to fall apart so that we can keep it together. And when we do, as we do, we live more in the flow. Things start to happen magically around us. And, and the business comes in, the clients come in, we have more energy. Everyone around us experiences that flow. It's a gift for everyone around us. When we're more in the flow, when people get around us, they're more in the flow because we're all connected, right? So I want to just come to a close here, wrapping up, coming at the end of the hour. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me. I hope that you've learned some stuff, or maybe just some food for thought, right? I invite you, I would really love for you to send some questions to me or just reflections. What resonates with you, what doesn't resonate, what do you want to hear more about? What do you want to hear less about? And, ask me for some clarity. That helps me. And if you do, maybe I'll read your question and I'll answer it next week. Today, it's been a bit more of an overview. I've gotten into some specific stuff, but we're going to drill down and we're going to do some more practices, some more practical applications. How do we actually live these nice ideas in real life? How do we apply them so that we can have more energy, so we can have better relationships, and so that we can be more fully alive? Hi, Christian. Thanks for tuning in. I can't wait to see you later on. I love you all so much. Be well. Be fully alive. Have a great week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and deltaforce.net.